John, if I could take over presenter rights.
You can go ahead and grab it.
Perfect. Thank you. Great. Thank you, Russ. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 28th Litchfield Budget Committee meeting. We're going to go ahead and get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll all rise, I'll have a flag here. We can pledge together.
Yeah, 1, 2.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, great. Thank you very much, everyone. With that, we will now move into public input. John, I don't believe I see anybody from the public in the WebEx, at least some participants. Could you confirm for us?
That is correct. Nobody's there.
Okay, great. And just to confirm, can everyone see my screen? I'm going to present some materials tonight, so we're all looking at the same material.
Yep.
Yes.
Can everyone see my agenda? Perfect.
Yep.
Great. So moving forward in tonight's agenda, there are review and additions to the agenda for this evening. Does anyone on the committee have any changes or additions to tonight's agenda?
Nope.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll move forward with review and acceptance of the April 23rd, 2020 minutes as amended. I do know there were several amendments that have come into those minutes. Michelle, thank you very much for being prompt as always in making those changes. Are there any other amendments to the minutes that have not already been mentioned or provided to both myself or to Michelle? And if not, I will entertain a motion.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by, was that Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Thank you. And who seconded, please?
John David.
Thanks, John David. Appreciate that. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I will go down the roll call here and we just get my list here. And okay, Nikki, how do you vote?
Yay, yes.
Yay. Jen, have you joined? Ms. Burke? No? Ms. Douglas?
Yay.
Mr. Hodgkins?
Yay.
Mr. Hayes? Mr. Sun?
Yay.
Ms. Harrison?
Yay for me.
And Mr. Leary?
Yay.
And I am also a yay. So the minutes were accepted by a vote of 8-0-0. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Moving on to town business. Mr. Leary, I'll turn it over to you.
Selectmen met last on the 5th of May. We don't have another meeting until the 8th of June. We did a testing of the AC at the town hall, found that it was severely inadequate on the return lines. We have an estimate for the repair work. I don't know that we're going to push that forward yet. I'm sure there'll be some very unhappy people right now, but we're trying to be very cognizant of the money situation. And then we discussed the hazard pay, which the state is giving to New Hampshire. Litchfield's getting $200K for loss of revenue. Versus first responders are eligible for that. And then we discussed the highway clear span building up there, which we had an estimate committed $46,000 to repair that, and we're definitely holding off on that right now. It's not in danger of collapsing, but we're just very, very worried about spending money more than we really need to at this point. So, and then the only other thing we really discussed was the flag and the seal usage, which we're discussing with legal as to what our options are with that. If anyone has any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Leary. Any questions for Mr. Leary on the town side this evening? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Leary, once again. Next up is review of expenditures, RSA 3222. This is an item that was historically on our agendas from past. We all received the updated weekly town expenses from Heather. Thank you very much, Heather, for sending those across so promptly, by the way. Are there any questions on the review of expenditures on the town side at this time? Okay, hearing none. Moving forward in the agenda, I'll turn it over to Ms. Harrison for a school update.
Thank you. We had our last meeting on May 20th, which was just last week. And there were some questions from the committee going into that meeting that I wanted to respond to. One of the questions was about unpaid salaries for coaches and stipends and unpaid transportation costs through the end of this year and where that money was going. That's all included in within our projected end of year funds. The board has not voted yet on any expenditures or projects that we're looking to buy ahead, but we have had discussions. The board has looked at a list of opportunities to spend ahead for next year. Basically, mostly for facilities, some maintenance, two auto scrubbers for CHS and LMS equipment that needs to be replaced and was budgeted for in the FY21 budget. That if we can free up some monies going into next year, then we'd like to be able to do that because basically, the unknown nature of what kinds of protocols and accommodations we're going to need to make going into the start of the school year in August. So we haven't made any votes on any of those kinds of decisions yet, but we did have a pretty lengthy discussion about what the needs might be if we are able to open our brick and mortar school buildings. There will be a need for increased sanitation, cleaning supplies, potentially PPE for staff, teachers, and students. We might be looking at installing more hand sanitizers, installing hand washing stations in the cafeterias, that kind of thing. That, these are all kind of responsible responses to COVID. If we are able to determine that it's safe to open our buildings again. If not, we will likely have to make purchases for remote learning, additional software, educational programming. So that's all kind of on the horizon, and we're convening a task force to kind of make up our reopening plan, beginning as soon as this school year is over. So we're convening it'll have representatives from administration, the public, parents, students, teachers, support staff members, to try to determine what the best scenario for Litchfield looks like. The guidance from the state will be coming out, the guidelines for reopening from the state will be coming out around June 30th. So once we have those in hand, we can kind of take a look at those guidelines and see what would work best for Litchfield, whether it's 100% remote, some kind of hybrid where we have students participating remotely and visiting the school building in smaller groups, or if we're able to open fully. So that's all way up in the air right now. There was a question too about the CARES funds that, how much money the Litchfield School District would be receiving from the CARES funds for education. We're anticipating about $75,000, but as of yet, there have been no rulings made or guidance on how that money is to be spent. It's unclear to schools at this point whether it's meant for making the transition to remote learning, which we certainly have accrued costs there. Or if it is meant, if we can spend it on kind of remedial services and things that we project that will be needed in the fall when we reopen. So that's still up in the air, but we do estimate about $75,000 that will come to the school district at some point in time. And then I think that was it for questions. Did anybody else have anything? I guess.
The third
I do.
question, Ms. Harrison, that I had was about the budget expense report. So we did receive the school business administrator's
Yes.
report, which is great. Historically, and this is very well received, thank you very much, and I have it up on the screen, so hopefully everyone can see that.
Mhm.
Historically, the committee's also received a very detailed, several page, 50-plus page expense report, literally line by line. Is that still available? Does the business administrator still produce that for the school board?
The school board sees the manifest on a weekly basis. So we don't, is that right, Michelle? It's not
I'm sorry, it's breaking up. I didn't hear that.
sorry.
I know what Andrew wants. He wants all the expenditures in the Cognos report that we usually do. I'll get that for you tomorrow.
Do we want
Okay,
to vote as a
great.
committee to have that sent over like on a regular basis, like the town does?
Yeah, from my personal standpoint, I don't need it on a weekly basis, but I think reviewing it on a monthly basis is certainly sufficient.
Okay.
It's up to the will of the committee, though.
I would say on a monthly
Any other
basis.
thoughts? Okay, thanks, Bill.
Yeah, I think monthly would be fine as well.
Okay.
I will put that on my calendar for you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Should we tie it, Andrew, should we tie
Appreciate
it up with a vote? Do we need to?
We certainly can. I mean, this is more informational in nature. I don't know that a vote is warranted.
Just to clear, to kind of underline that it's the will of the committee and a committee
So-
class.
Wouldn't we need a motion then? So do you want to make a motion
Yeah,
and then it's
we'll need a motion in a second then to do that.
So moved. Pause in the action
I have a
then.
motion by Mr. Leary. Thank you.
I'll second it.
Second by
monthly
Mrs. Douglas. Okay, we'll go down the line here. Mr. Leary, this is voting for or against, I guess, depending on how you like, for a monthly report from the school on expenses, I guess using a Cognos report
Yeah.
or more of a line-by-line detail of expenses from the school.
Okay.
How would you
Aye.
vote?
Aye.
Okay. Ms. Burke?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Sutton?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Harrison?
Aye.
Mr. Hodgkins?
Aye.
Ms. Douglas?
Aye.
Ms. Forty?
Aye.
Mr. Hayes?
Aye.
And I am also an aye, so that passes
Great.
9-0-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions?
Andrew, I have a question for the school board.
Please.
I just wanted to know, is the school board considering giving the money back to the taxpayers?
Yes, we have allocated at least $750,000 to go against setting the tax rate for next year.
Okay, thank you.
Is that detailed in
Thank
this
you.
report? I believe it is.
No, but that has been the discussion. I think Corey included some random months in that report. I apologize for that. It's not clear. No,
Yeah,
I don't.
No, I wanted to say I saw it, but okay.
Yeah. That's kind of that's the intent and will of the board at this point in time.
And what is the total anticipated end of year balance?
I
Unbalance?
believe he had that, of course, now let me see if I can pull it up on mine. That was, I want to say it was 1,000, yeah, 1 million, sorry, not 1,000, 1 million, about 1.3 million, I believe.
Is it 1,308,000? Yeah,
That,
that's what I see
believe
here.
So, yeah.
Okay. And so about
Right.
half of that, just under half of that, right? Or just over half of that is being returned to the taxpayer?
I think so. I'm looking at the last page of the VA report. There's the fund balance ending on March 23rd. And then right above that, no, I guess that would be the number. I'm so sorry. I'm not clear on that. I believe it is the 1.3 though.
Okay. Thank you.
I can
Any other questions?
find out and reaffirm.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Was this particular report sent out to the committee? I don't see it in my email.
Yes, it was forwarded to the committee just this week, actually.
I don't recall seeing that either.
Let me check my sent.
I just have the meeting schedule. I don't have anything else either, Mr. Chairman.
And actually, Andrew, I didn't receive it either. I got your email today that it was sent out. So I don't know if something's
Yeah,
glitched.
I definitely forwarded to the budget committee. Okay. So I apologize. I do see it in my sent items, but I will resend it again if nobody received it. And if you could just confirm back to me that you received it, that's great.
Yeah, I think it's the email because I just received your response that you did send it out when I asked you yesterday. So I don't know what's going on.
Okay. All right, we'll look into that, and I will get it recirculated after this meeting. I apologize for that. I do see it in my sent, but we'll do it again. Okay, anything else from the school side?
No, I mean, we had an enrollment update. We're still watching grade 1 very closely. They're currently enrolled with 80 students. And so the question is whether 4 more students enroll in first grade and trigger the need for that 5th first grade classroom. At this point, that position has not been filled for next year, but we're watching it closely and we anticipate needing it. We anticipate those 4 enrollments over the summer. So we're watching that and watching and waiting on that. Kindergarten enrollment is at 64, so we don't see an imminent need to add a 5th classroom. So that's where we stand with that. Although everything's up in the air.
Thank you very much.
Who knows what's going to happen? You know, we may be working under guidelines that only 12 students are allowed in the classroom, and you know, so again, it's hard to project at this point what opening school in the fall is going to look like. We just don't know at this point.
Speaking as a parent of elementary students, I look forward to school reopening.
As a parent of a middle schooler and a high school, I look forward to that school reopening as well. I think that's everybody's hope is that we'll be open and back to a new normal, but we're working on getting there. So we appreciate your patience.
Very good. Thank you for the update, Ms. Harrison. Any other questions from the committee to the school?
I would just like to say I love driving in the yard and seeing the kids here during the day. Of course, I don't have to put up with them.
But yeah, are you making them do their work?
That's the difference.
Oh, no.
Bob, I'll send you a couple more your way across the street.
Okay.
Exactly.
Just send them across the street, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Look both ways.
All right, moving forward in the agenda. Next up is moving into member input, new business. And the next agenda item is taking a look at the calendar that was circulated. Did everyone receive the calendar that I sent across?
Yes, sir.
I got thumbs up, thumbs up. All right, so that's good. At least that one went out. So again, I'll reaffirm the business administrator. I just received that the other day myself, so I'll definitely send that. So a little bit of background on the meeting schedule and kind of what you see here and some of the differences between this proposed meeting schedule. This is very much draft. It's the will of the committee, right? But this is draft in its present form. But some of the considerations that were done. First thing this committee should know is this was reviewed with the town. I did meet with the town administrator. The town administrator did bless the schedule. It did look good from his perspective. And I also had a meeting, actually Ms. Forty and I had a meeting with the school, and we reviewed this with the school side as well. And we collaborated and came to some type of agreement, some type of schedule that we think will work for the committee. So very much interested in the committee's thoughts. Some things you see here, right? So April, we're in the May meeting. June we'll have July, following standard budget committee practice in past years. We typically do not meet in July unless there's a pressing matter and we need to meet, but at this point I don't see that happening. And then we begin more of our regular cadence, our regular meeting schedule beginning in late August and into September, with the budget reviews starting from the town side beginning in October. Now, a couple of things that are a little bit different. You'll note I put the times here, right? One of the things that we talked about as a committee at our last meeting, at our April meeting, was, hey, could we consider moving it up 30 minutes? And I know there was some hesitations. That works for some people, that doesn't work for some people. And, Ms. Forty and I went back and forth, and we kind of deliberated about what we think would work best for the committee, and not to insult or not to exclude anyone from any of these meetings, right? That's the idea. So anytime we have a review, right, where it's more informational in nature, the committee is not necessarily making decisions or actually voting. The idea is that we can start those sessions at 6:30, with the idea also that we're committing as a committee to have a hard stop by 9:30, right? So we know, and we've already talked about as a committee, that every meeting we're going to have a hard stop at 9:30. Getting through some of the budget cycles, as we know, can be somewhat of a lengthy process, especially as we have town department heads coming and presenting. And again, the idea is when we have those types of sessions, we're not voting on anything. And so moving those up to a 6:30 start and having a good 3-hour window to get those sessions in was the idea. And then when we are voting, we want to make sure that we can have full committee representation, right, and have those sessions start at 7. And so that has been rolled into this meeting schedule and why you see the varying times. In addition to that, when we're moving forward into the school meeting schedule, again, Ms. Forty and I had collaboration with Ms. Harrison, as well as the superintendent and business administrator, as well as the school board chair. And we came up with a schedule in order to try and streamline the process, in order to have a collaborative approach to the school budget review. Historically, in the past several years, and I'm sure Ms. Harrison can speak to this, the school board would meet on a Saturday. It would be an all-day affair where they would go through the budgets in its entirety in a day. Sometimes it would carry over into more than one day. And then the budget review, that process would be repeated for the budget committee. The idea is if we can push that process off even just a week or two from when it historically has begun, we'll have better information, better data, especially regarding some of the insurance numbers that historically have been hard to predict in the October timeframe because they haven't been published. We don't know what they are at that point in time. So if we have a collaborative approach and we have a joint budget review session both on November 5th and November 10th, right, then this is essentially where the school board will meet, right, on these days. They will review the budgets, but the budget committee will essentially be an observer to the process. The budget committee for these particular meetings will not be asking questions, will not be interfering with the deliberation of the process, but the idea is that we can have all the information and be part of the process and have an understanding when we get into our budget reviews starting on November 12th and November 19th. Right, so November 10th, November 5th, and November 10th are very much meant to be school-led sessions with the budget committee participating in more of an observatory fashion, and then the budget committee picking up the process on November 12th, reviewing also on November 19th, and then beginning voting just after Thanksgiving in early December. right? And the idea, again, behind that is to streamline the process, to create efficiency, and to ensure the Budget Committee is a part of the entire review process, and we are privy to all the information that the department heads are presenting to the school board as well. Ms. Forty, did you have anything to add on that?
No, I think you did a really good job of explaining kind of how it came about. You know, it definitely was a collaboration to try to see how to streamline the process and make sure that, you know, the school board and the Budget Committee are able to, you know, do their separate functions, but that there is substantial overlap in those presentations.
Okay, thank you. Let me get through the rest of what you see here, and then I'll open it up to the committee for questions and comments. Another item that is new this year that we need to factor into our overall planning is it's important that we factor in dates from a Budget Committee to review the output of the various capital improvement planning committees. You're going to hear a little bit more about that in a short time this evening from both the town and the school side. But, you know, we're also going to potentially receive warrant articles from both the town and the school that will impact voting for March, right? And the committee will need to weigh in given the budgetary items associated to those potential warrant articles. And therefore, we need to factor in review sessions of what's being considered, what's on the warrant, and that type of thing. So these particular dates have also been added into the schedule, which again is new this year, given the charter and given those capital improvement planning committees and what they're working towards. And again, because those are more of review sessions, you know, we are starting them a little bit earlier. The idea is that we're not voting on December 10th and December 15th on these. Those will be reviewed and presented actually on the warrant articles themselves in early January is when it's projected here. And so these are very much review sessions. Now, the bottom bullets on the screen here are really working backwards in time. I did reach out to the state, I did reach out to the town, and these are the dates as best as I know them at this time. The actual formal dates between when the budget hearing has to happen and when deliberative sessions have to happen has not yet been finalized. However, we do know based upon past history when we can anticipate them. And so we do know for a fact that March 9th is our date for our annual meeting. So essentially this calendar is working backwards from that one date. Now I know Ms. Douglas, you provided some feedback on February 13th, you know, being a little bit too late for a deliberative session. That's fine. The good news is that after January 16th, right, there's plenty of time in between, nearly a month between the 16th and mid-February to be able to have those deliberative sessions. So these dates are very much tentative. Of course, they can fluctuate. So we may see these deliberative sessions move up a week or so in the schedule. Okay. So with that, let me take a moment to pause and, you know, we'll just open up the floor for committee comments and questions.
Just a couple of questions. So, and this may be a one-off just for me and not other committee members, but I feel like we moved away from the Tuesday meetings. And so from a professional standpoint, my availability on Tuesdays is less. I get the presentation piece that I could watch via like YouTube or whatever and still be able to catch up. I just have some personal concerns about having voting on Tuesdays. And then the follow-up to that is in regards to the Capital Improvement Committee, I guess I'm a little concerned on the town side that some of the things that could be presented as warrant articles could have impact to the tax cap. And so are we better just incorporating all of that together as opposed to having it separately? Because we could vote on all of these things for the town budget and then have warrant articles presented that will then push us above the tax cap and force us to have to go back to the town budget and potentially make additional cuts, creating really a lot more work.
Yeah, it's a, you know, in response to the tax cap point, it's a very fair point. And, you know, I question and have concerns about just the operating budget now being over the tax cap, regardless of warrant articles. I think it's premature for us to consider what that looks like at this time. You know, keep in mind that the town in March voted to have communications equipment now rolled into the budget, right? That passed. That's a large item in the operating budget that will flow into next year that we didn't have this current year. And with an anticipated decrease in revenue because of COVID, we have no idea what that actually looks like and what the impact is. So it is a real concern. In regard to the voting on Tuesdays, I mean, that's absolutely up to the committee. What does the committee think? Again, we're working back from that March 9th date, right? And there is only so many days that we can meet as a committee given the holiday schedule as well.
I'll second Jen's concern. When I saw the Tuesdays, I was a little, I had concerns about meeting earlier on Thursdays because 6:30 was hard. So to do two 6:30s in the same week is going to be a challenge. Tuesdays are a late night in our house for various meeting prep for the next day. So Tuesdays are going to be a challenge for me, period, but 6:30 in particular will be even more of a challenge. And then I also have concern about tentative meeting for December 29th. I can tell you right now I'm not going to be available. We could have to meet that day, but I'm not going to be available that day. So I don't know what other people's plans are, and I appreciate building in the time, but I'd rather build in the first week in January. I mean, between January 2nd, 3rd, and 7th, I think you could slide in a date. December 29th, to me, I can't do that.
Yeah, fair point. Fair point. And again, there's a few week period in between, the 16th and when deliberative will likely have to be held. So there's also some opportunity in this window as well. Any other thoughts? Mr. Hodgkins, Mr. Hayes?
Yeah, I don't generally plan out that far, so I'll probably be, I don't know. I mean, I can make most meetings. They generally, a Tuesday doesn't really affect me all that much, but, yeah. So.
Yeah, here, I'm for the, as you presented it, I can make all the meetings as far as I know right at this point.
Okay, thank you. John David?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked this far out and, as far as personal or professional commitments, nothing's on the calendar at that point. But generally the way my work schedule works is Thursday nights are a lot easier than Tuesday nights just because I can be traveling sometimes on a Tuesday, Wednesday, coming home on Thursday. My preference would be to stick with Thursday nights just because from a work standpoint, that's much more manageable if I know that's the night I need to make sure I'm back in town by.
Okay, got it.
To that point, I mean, I don't know what it's going to look like moving forward, Andrew, and whether or not virtual engagement in meetings moving forward, excuse me, will be acceptable, but that could change it. I'm sorry, I'm choking right now. That could change it as well. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, I had actually thought about that. To Jen's point on some of these that are observations, that, we're not as much of an active role. If virtual participation is an option, that gives me more flexibility, but I do what's best for all.
Andrew, I was looking at the capital improvement planning meetings and wondering if we really need two of those, because the school district's CIP plan is going to be rolled into the town's plan. If we can combine those meetings into one meeting, then maybe we could move the school voting to December 10th and alleviate the need to have it on a Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely. We could push this out to December 15th and blend it together, right? This is, again, more of a placeholder because I don't know really what the output of these committees at this point. Yeah. And I don't know the level of detail that's going to be provided. But if this committee thinks there's an opportunity to blend these two meetings, absolutely. And then, we can move the school voting. That's fine by me.
That way we won't have, I believe, we won't have a vote on a Tuesday.
Correct. You won't have a vote on a Tuesday. The really only Tuesday sessions at that point would be the review session, which again will likely be recorded for those who are not able to attend. And then in addition to that, we have a tentative date here on the 29th, and that's really a placeholder.
Okay.
Does that work for everyone? Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. All right, we'll make that change. All right, and again, I have a disclaimer here to cover my ass, right? Cover my butt, just in case dates do change. You know, there's a disclaimer here, so we're good. All right, I'll go ahead and make that change. Any other comments and questions to the calendar?
I do think it's important to.
Go ahead, Nikki, sir.
Nope, sorry, my mute thing. It's like there's a delay. No worries. No, I do think it's an important point if we can try not to have voting on any of the Tuesdays. So, you know, refiguring, kind of massaging this a little bit, and then, you know, making sure that when we lock this in, we are communicating to LCTV with enough ahead of time so things are recorded and available in case anybody needs to watch the recording for some of the more observational or, you know, where it's more presentations. And then it really would be on the individual committee member if they're unable to go, you know, live in person, if we're even doing that, to watch the recording. So I think that might be something that the committee should be mindful of, is getting those dates and times to LCTV for coverage.
Absolutely. Yep, will do. Okay, moving forward in the agenda, next up is social media. I know Mr. Sun had some updates here, so Mr. Sun, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. So after our last meeting, I really wanted to make sure that the focus of kind of this work and conversation was around communication to community in the town. Really less about social media. That's, simply the tool. So I did have an opportunity to meet with John Burnell a couple of weeks ago. He provided me an overview of the town website and the WordPress communication platform. I've actually had a chance to use this technology in the past, and I'm fairly comfortable with it. And my opinion is I'm confident that this is the best tool to communicate our updates to the town. What this allows us to do is for the high-level notes to be taken there. Once the meeting is concluded, I can save and publish those to the town website. And then subsequently the town social media platforms, Facebook and Twitter, and also the What's Up page. So initially we would have 4 different viewing options for the members of town, including the non-social media option, the town website, which I think provides fair and equal access for any and everyone, whether they're on social media, off social media. They have a place where they could go and see those updates.
Okay, thank you. Any thoughts, questions? Everyone agree? Okay. What I'd like to do on the social media is I'd like to proceed with recommending John David post actual meeting updates, similar to what we've done over the past year, a couple years. What I'd like to do is vote on that, make sure we're all in agreement to John David doing that. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
So made.
So made.
All right, I'll take Carrie as a motion and Mr. Hayes as a second. Thank you very much. And we'll go down the line. Mr. Hodgkins, how do you vote?
Nay.
Nay, okay, thank you. Ms. Harrison?
Aye. Yay,
Mr. Leary?
whatever.
Aye.
Ms. Burke?
Thumbs up. Yes.
All right, Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Ms. Douglas?
Yes.
Ms. Forty?
Yes.
Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
And I am also an aye. So that passes 8-1-0. Great. All right. Thank you, John David, again for doing that and taking the charge on that. I appreciate it. Next
Absolutely.
up in our agenda is bylaws. And I had asked Mr. Sun, as well to think about how we can update our bylaws with a sentence or two to incorporate the communication plan. And I'll turn it back over to Mr. Sun for an update here.
Yeah, so I came up with a couple of sentences, kind of as a way to incorporate this into our bylaws. I'm going to go ahead and read what I have here, and we can discuss. The social media archivist shall be appointed by the committee to provide regular updates from scheduled and special meetings to the town via approved communication platforms, including but not limited to the town website, town social media platforms, and other approved social medias. The update shall include high-level information from each meeting, including public and member input, old and new business.
That sounds good to me. I don't know what other the committee's thoughts are.
I think it sounds fine. I believe we have to wait until next meeting to
Yes.
formally adopt it.
So,
Yeah.
So, Mr. Sun, if you could just send that to us in an email, right, so we all can read it.
Yep.
And then at our next meeting in June, we will formally vote to accept it.
And just a quick question, because John will not have access to, there's multiple town pages, right? So there's the What's Up. I believe the What's Not Up is still in existence, although I don't know because I was kicked off of it. And then there's the Moms page. So obviously, if John is not a member of the What's Not Up page and he can't be a member of the Moms page, are we going to say that other folks on the committee can post on behalf, or not post, but share on those pages? Is that appropriate?
Why do we have
my side? Go ahead, Brian.
Why do we have to post on anything other than the town page? Because if you're responding on a page that's not the town, then it's kind of your own opinion. You're talking, not everybody in the town can be part of the What's Up page because people have been kicked out. I'm not on the What's Up page. I can't be. So it's.
So I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make it more confusing. I think we're using the town page, but then I thought we said that John was going to share that onto the What's Up page, but then there are at least two other pages in town.
Right. Sorry, I wasn't. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, I don't believe any of the other pages, be it that Mom page, the What's Not Up page, or the What's Up page, should be involved in this whatsoever. If you want to post stuff on social media, if the town has a page, that's where everybody in this town has the availability or the ability to go because they're not kicked off or not. So you can't post on a page where the residents of the town are not allowed.
I think the town has its own account, correct? So you would be posting to the town Facebook page, right?
Yeah. Let me clarify something I should have said earlier. So when I post on the town website, my understanding in the conversations with Mr. Brunel is that once that post happens on the town website, it goes live almost immediately. And then within minutes or hours, the town website will push that out automatically to the town Facebook page and the town Twitter account. And currently, I believe it is also set up to push it out to the town What's Up page as well. So that would come not from me, John David Sun, but it would come from the town of Litchfield being shared to those other pages. That's my understanding of how that will work.
Right. But so then I feel like we're kind of, John does a wonderful job of sharing whatever goes on the town page, the What's Up page, but there are two other groups that don't necessarily participate in those. So I think we have to think about
Well, I think, I mean,
that's a larger, hold on, I think that's a larger conversation for the board though, not for our budget committee, right? If we're using a town-approved mechanism for communication and we don't have control over how that's pushed out, then we're doing everything that we can to make sure that we're following the process and the communication process already withstanding, right? We don't have any control or potential influence over the different channels that this is being pushed out to, right, wrong or indifferent that is.
right, I think, yeah, that makes sense, Andrew. I think being, as someone who runs the school board Facebook page, I am a member of several other pages, and I take it upon myself to share the school board posts in those other groups. But if we're merely using the way the town communicates, then I don't think that there's any, there's no bias inherent in that. If the town is already using that flow. The other thing too is other people will pick up on it and share it, when it interests them and when they frankly want to rally the troops. So I think that happens inherently on Facebook. But I'm, Jen, are you suggesting that we, each one of us as committee members are free to share it, or you would like to kind of direct us to share it in those other venues?
No, I don't think that we should be directed to share it. I just think that we're missing, I think we're missing an opportunity to reach a larger audience. Yeah. If the intent is to get this information out to as many people as possible, there are a number of people on the What's Not Up page, if it still exists, that are not on the What's Up page. There are a number of people that are on the Moms page that are not there. So, but there's no way that the Litchfield page can share it to the Moms page because they're not moms.
Right.
The Board of Selectmen is all men. So
what I'd like to do here is pause this conversation, right? And the reason why is I'm gonna put a question over to Mr. Leary, please. Mr. Leary, if you could take this and talk about this as a board, right? Because the budget committee is not controlling how the information is flowing from an information technology perspective. And I think it's a valid point that Mr. Burke makes, right? There's other pages, other groups. We want to make sure we hit all the audiences. So if there's some direction out there that we can use or enhance to make sure that everyone potentially who could receive notifications is receiving those notifications through these automated pushes, I think that would go a long way.
Right, but that leads to my question. We have access to know who the admins are. Why not encourage said admins to reach out to Brunel and ask to be on the distribution list? Like, clearly there's an opportunity for the What's Up page. Why don't the admins of the What's Not Up page, if they want it pushed there, reach out and say, hey, how do we get it pushed to our page? If the Moms page wants it pushed to their page, say, hey, Mr. Brunel, how do we get it pushed to our page? I mean, rather than cut the communication because we're concerned it's limited, let's reach out to the admins and of the other pages and include them in the fold.
I think that's the exact same thing in a much nicer way. Thanks, Terry. And one thing I'll add as it pertains to the bylaws is the way I read them, and that I'll email to you shortly. It's very generic and state approved social media groups. So whatever changes we make, whatever changes are made at the town level, the town communication system, that is it all encompassing in the way that the bylaws would be written.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I couldn't speak for the whole board. I can only speak for my own personal self here. I think that Jen and Brian both make very good points. It's almost like some groups are being left out of the information loop, and I would say that it should go out to every group or just the town webpage, not to pick and choose where it goes. Either send it out to everybody or just put it on the town webpage and leave it there. I will ask John and I'll ask Troy to try and see how we can go about doing this and making sure everybody's in the loop. I don't want to see anybody left out.
I would encourage the town to find a process though, because we know there's 3 groups now. What's to say in 6 months there's not 5 groups? So there's a way for John and the Board of Selectmen to implement a policy and a procedure for admins of these, potentially new groups in the future to reach out to get on the list.
Yeah.
But I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater because we're upset that only one group gets it. Let's figure out how to make it possible for more groups.
Yeah, exactly. I would agree with that. Does that kind of address what you guys are talking about, Jen and Brian, a little bit? Thumbs up.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. The other question I would have, though, is the social media person going to be having discussions, or are you just posting information from the meeting? Is there going to be anything where you have back and forth conversations with people representing the budget committee, or is it just posting information and that's it?
Yeah, good question. The way it's set up is I wouldn't even post to Facebook or Twitter. I would post to the town website, and then the town website platform pushes that out to the social media platform. So no, and honestly, if that's something that we want written into the bylaws, I think people can respond via email and ask that something like that be included in there, that it is deemed as a one-way communication and not to respond or interact, or however we would want to do that.
Andrew used to use wording to that effect, I believe, at the bottom of each post. So it just incorporates that back in.
Yeah, I've
And
seen that.
Maybe Mr. Brunel can set it up somehow that just commenting is turned off to the posts, and then it's not even an issue. Any new discussion would be a new thread.
That's actually a great idea to turn off commenting. Yep.
That's a great idea. I'll reach out to John after this meeting and ask about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Great dialogue. Thank you to all. All right, thanks, Mr. Sun, again for the updates on social media and bylaws. We look forward to receiving those couple of sentences from you over the next couple of days, and we'll take action on that on our June 25th meeting. So thank you again for running that update tonight.
Okay.
Next up on the agenda is a capital improvement planning committee update from both the town and the school. The town, I can share. I sat in on the town meeting. It was held early in May. Don't quote me on the date, but I believe it was May 4th. All days are like Groundhog Day for me now. So, but the town update was we did meet as a committee. The only item that was presented from the town side at that time was an overview of the police department needs. We had the chief of police join the meeting, and Chief Sergeant went through some of the infrastructure needs. The new police station that is being considered, or at least discussed at this point, was also discussed at the Capital Improvement Planning Committee. It's premature to provide any numbers to this committee. There were some, very high-level estimates that were discussed in terms of costs for a new police department. However, it was using very dated plans. It was a standalone structure. It was not connected to the new fire department that was built, which was designed to also have a connection to a future police department in the event that that's how the town proceeds. And so some updates to that planning absolutely needed to happen. And as a next step, I believe that the chief was going to work with the Board of Selectmen in an effort to secure some type of funding to proceed with getting updated proposals. That was all that was discussed on the town side. Mr. Lear, I don't know if you have any updates that you're familiar with at this time.
No, you just gave me a bunch of new information. Thank you. I have not heard a thing. It must be a top
so that's
secret.
still in the works, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions on the town side? All right, and from the school side, I know Ms. Forty represents our committee on that particular Capital Improvement Planning Committee, so I'll turn the floor over to Ms. Forty for an update.
Hi, everybody. So I think from just the overview, so the school district Capital Improvement Committee, we did meet yesterday evening, and Tina was there as well. So I give her full permission to jump in and correct me as much as possible. I think one of the big kind of like high level takeaways is that, the way that the school district is approaching this is very much in collaboration with the town. Steve Weber was also on the meeting yesterday and provided some great opportunity for collaboration, ways that we can really make sure that as the town and the school both look ahead, 5, 6, however many years out, we're really getting a sense that and understanding from the get-go that, any money that is asked for from the voters, whether it be for a town or school or shared project, that's all coming from the same source. So I was really pleased to see that there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration there. To that end, the way that the school is approaching things is that they have used the forms developed by the town capital improvement committee and come up kind of with a list of priorities in terms of bigger sort of capital improvement projects over the next 6 years. And so they are in the process right now of filling out all the supplementary documentation for those priorities. And some of those, so the hope is that now the school has gotten all this information together. It's going to bring that to the town capital improvement committee forum, and then that can all be enveloped together as one cohesive plan. Similar to what Andrew was saying, some as far as the specific dollar amounts for some plans, it's still difficult to know exactly how things are going to go. And also, there is not as much information right now about, they're closely watching any anticipated decrease in revenue and any potential for a reduction in state adequacy aid due to COVID and the economic impact. Nothing's been specifically communicated yet. However, there is some question about how certain any fiscal disparity aid that was anticipated to be received by the school for next school year. It's supposed to be give or take 660,000. Not quite sure exactly if there will be an economic impact on that.
Nikki,
yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I did get an email from Corey. I didn't know if you were on that email. That
I did check that now.
Okay, he did reach out to the state, and because of that work, in my mind, the bucket is, I'm calling it the infrastructure fund because it's the fiscal disparity aid, the 666,000. That is not. It's they're saying, don't use it to hire new teachers. Don't use it. It's to help. We're focusing on infrastructure. There will be no change to that because it was passed by law. So it would take an act of Congress to change that. So we're still expecting that we will be receiving that 666,000. And that will be paid to the district with our adequacy aid payment. So it won't be one lump sum, but it'll be in receipt over the course of next year.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Yay. Okay. So in terms of the priorities on the school side, I think the main takeaway from the meeting yesterday was that really focusing on the need for a new school and working on a pre-kindergarten, so pre-K to 5 approach. And again, very basic numbers, looking at some of other schools that have been constructed in terms of like a price per square foot that they're working off of right now, an estimate at about $325 a square foot for 90,000 square feet means that right now what they're looking at is to appear on the warrant for municipal bonds of approximately $30 million in 2023. And that is because there needs to be some time to apply for state building aid, and not looking at all of the different requirements for a new school building now. So I don't want to get, too into the weeds on some of the specifics, but I think if there's a way to kind of put forward that the primary priority right now is for that new school to replace DMS, and how that would avoid costs associated with the many needed improvements at DMS, in terms of updating and improving the parking lot just from a safety perspective. We have estimates at over $260,000 for that. Some of the energy and efficiency improvements in lighting and HVAC, which has come in at over $1 million needed for DMS, and a lot of just repair of broken or end of useful life materials. And just some of the idea behind it being a pre-K through 5 school is also a very high priority, is being able to move away from the portables in the 5th grade. And in terms of our financial impact, right now we are paying that lease on the portables every year. I believe it's a little over $32,000 a year. So the plan would be a pre-K through 5 new school. LMS would be 6 through 8. And then if, there are some ideas about how the priorities would shift, whether or not this new school would be approved by the voters. But there's still a lot of work to be done, a lot of things that we're looking at. So that has definitely gone up as the first priority, but it is a couple years out. In terms of what we could potentially see sooner, would be some of the lighting and HVAC upgrades and repairs at LMS and CHS. And so what that would do, which is about 2.6 million, which would be planned for the 2021 to 2022 school year, which would involve that initial investment, but then reduce operating costs over the lifespan of the materials for outdated and the existing inefficient outdated systems. So, looking at what are some ways that we can, especially in the buildings in LMS and CHS, to improve those efficiencies there. And some other items, include things like potentially the CHS stadium field lighting to allow for nighttime games, renovation of the kitchen at LMS. That right now it's too small for efficient service for the amount of students that are coming in and out. While that's a higher priority, it also is something that would be moved out a couple years. Also, some discussion about the stadium turf field at CHS to allow for longer seasons of the sports teams, and also it being a safer playing field for the student athletes, and as a potential revenue source if the field were to be rented out to outside groups. And the amount they had very tentative for that was about $770,000. And then, going further down the priority list, the gym bleachers at CHS are approaching the end of useful life, anticipating a warrant article, again, a couple years out for around $206,000, again, estimated figure. And then some need to expand and replace the LMS parking lot. More parking definitely needed. Also some issues with egress and emergency vehicles being able to get in and get out with the current setup. It's possible that if a new the pre-K through 5 school was approved, that then where that would be situated in relationship to LMS, that some of the costs associated with renovating the parking lot could then be refigured into some of the new school construction. So what the committee tried to do was to both put out, these are our priorities, and also, if the vote doesn't quite go to approving the new school, which is the main priority, there are still several things that need to get addressed. And finally, some district-wide capital repairs, specifically roofing and heating. That is my dog. Roofing at LMS and CHS, heating in terms of the new boilers, and that these would be things that we'd have to look at CMS, you know, if the new school building were not to pass. These are still things that we would definitely need district-wide, but this would be about another 5 years out, looking at more the district-wide capital repairs that would be needed. Potentially a warrant article. Difficult to know the exact figures right now. So I know that's a lot right at you, but again, these are some of the things that we are discussing in the committee, and all of this information will be packaged and look wonderful for the Town Capital Improvement Committee and discuss further there.
Thanks, Ms. Forty. That was a great update. Just one comment before I turn it over to the rest of the committee. You know, while it's important to understand what's being discussed, I think it's also critically important for this committee. And you know, I can see all your pictures on my other screen here, and you know, it's interesting to see everyone's faces in WebEx. But I think it's really important to understand that this is all informational at this stage. There's been no votes, no actions. It's simply and purely discussion at this point, and ultimately, whatever is approved from the town as well as the school respective boards, they would be put towards a warrant article, which our committee can then obviously deliberate and then ultimately vote on. So just keep that in mind that while, you know, Ms. Forty shared some updates and again, seeing some of the faces and reactions to what was being presented, just keep in mind it's all informational at this stage, right? There's no actions, there's no commitments to funding any of those at this particular point in time. Okay. All right, I'll turn it over to the committee. Questions, comments? Did I cut somebody off? I think I cut somebody off a moment ago, so please.
I was going to ask a question, and knowing that all of this is purely informational, you know, Nikki, when you were talking about the pre-K through 5 school, potential pre-K through 5 school, is there land that the school district already owns that's being entertained as a part of that discussion, or would that be something that would have to be included in a cost or proposal?
You want me to take that one, Nikki?
Yeah, I think you'd be able to better explain it, and I wish I had that picture. I don't know if I still have that picture of the land, but. So
the district owns the land. We own, I don't know if you've been back there, but from where LMS is, if you drive down McElwain Road and you go straight back, it backs up against Stagecoach development behind the library. I think it's Stagecoach, Stagecoach Road or something.
Yep.
And that goes all the way to 3A. Mm-hmm. So the lot. So basically, the big picture is that it will a new building would be built on school-owned land with a main entrance road going from 3A before you hit the Pinecrest intersection up to the new school and LMS in kind of a reconfigured driveway parking lot drop-off system. So we do already own the land. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
And Ms. Harrison, my question would be, has there been any preliminary thought to the existing GMS structure itself? What would happen should the new school be built?
GMS? That's kind of the big question mark. We've batted around some ideas, you know, about, I don't know, there are a lot of possibilities. And a lot of different ideas kind of being flown around at this point. We don't have a buyer or anything like that because we're really early in the beginning stages. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on the building in order to be, I guess, up to, I mean, I hate to say that, you know, the way it is right now is it's up to standards, but it's not suitable for educational purposes right now. It's depending on what it was used for, I think there's still a lot of potential in the building. You know, some of the older wings are unusable or close to it, but with, you know, some investment and some renovations, I think there's still a lot of potential for the town and for Litchfield to use those grounds in that building. I know that doesn't answer your question, but no, we don't know what's going to happen to GMS, but there's a lot of there's a lot of ideas.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, that's it. I mean, ultimately, would it still be school property, or would it then, once it's vacant, right, does it then become property of the town that the town needs to decide what to do?
Right. The capital planning committee has discussed, you know, transfer of ownership if the town were interested. Again, those are, you know, we're just kind of throwing darts at the board and seeing which one sticks. So, you know, that we're at the very early stages of that process.
Got it. Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Harrison or Ms. Forty?
I just wanted to mention that, you know, as someone who's, you know, kind of I'll say it, an outsider to the school part of things, right, in town, you know, something that did strike me is we spent a lot of discussion and time and, you know, coming to the fact of this proposed new pre-K to 5 school being the first priority, that wasn't, you know, set from the get-go. There was a lot of discussion about, is there a way that we can, you know, renovate or change, or, you know, how can we use what we already have? And there really was a sense from multiple documents and studies and things that have been shown where from multiple sources saying that it was not feasible to continue to either add on or add up, or for a variety of reasons, issues with the parking lot itself and how it's positioned in town, some real just safety and structural concerns that just kept pushing towards needing a new structure.
And most of the driving factor, you know, in the kind of the recurring theme of those studies is the site itself. The site is on a water table, and that isn't a good place for a school building to be now, and it won't be a good place for a school building to be in 20 years. So we're very limited based on where GMS sits currently, and limited by the fact that there's really, we're not able to build onto the building anymore. We've exceeded the, you know, the useful life of the building and the grounds, and there's really no other way to go at this point.
If you're gonna
Andrew, we can't hear you, Andrew.
I'm sorry.
Helps if I come off mute, right? Thank you. I was just saying we're, you know, closing up member input. Are there any other comments or questions for any other committee members?
My only question on that would be if you're going to do a pre-K through 5, that's going to be 8 classes in one building? Isn't that a bit of overcrowding?
Well, the building would be bigger necessarily. The new standards is 900 square feet per class, where right now we currently have, I believe it's 750 per class, roughly at GMS. So it would be a bigger building. The reason for including grade 5 is to get grade 5 out of the portables that are at LMS, and include them in the population at the elementary school. You know, a survey of different districts all over the state. It seems like every district does it differently. Some have a pre-K to 3, and then a 4 to 6, and a 7 through 12. So there's no real reason to not include grade 5 in the new building. And where if we maintain grade 5 at LMS, which was really built to be a 6 through 8 school, we will run into space issues there. And so this would solve the space issues at LMS going forward in the future. It's kind of the thought behind it.
All right. Any thought to a smaller, perhaps a smaller building and keeping like pre-K through maybe first or second grade in GMS? I'm just thinking of the cost factor.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And we've discussed and explored all those avenues. Because of the additional administration and frankly the state of the systems in place, the boilers, the heaters, the inefficient windows. GMS is kind of an inefficient. We're way overpaying to keep that building running based on the efficiency of the systems that are in place. And we would need basically an additional administration to man another school. Whereas if we can do it in one building, we don't need a principal, an assistant principal, a guidance counselor, another kitchen, another, food services director. So I think that was kind of the thought, that it was much less expensive going forward to just do it all in one building than to kind of piecemeal it out throughout the district. Is that the kind of, Nikki, do you agree with that? Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I think, some of the considerations, the space considerations, and not wanting to double up any efforts, and also really looking at just the age of the infrastructure, and in terms of, the one thing that still just sticks out in my mind about CMS is, in the oldest part, the 1930s part, is where some of the heating and the water pipes are going through, and the fact that we have to heat that part of the school to keep the water, that just the inefficiencies that are there that just predate everything. And then in terms of the fifth grade, something we had a lot of conversation about, was, is it adding classrooms to LMS to try to get the students out of the portables? And the cost to try to add an LMS was significantly higher than including that square footage in this potential pre-K to 5 school.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the updates. Again, appreciate it. Any other comments or questions?
Andrew, I had an update. I had a chance to go back and check my emails. I sent you and Nikki the year-to-date financials from Corey, dated 5/20/2020. So you were the 1.3 million we were talking about in the end-of-year funds. I found that number, and it was 1.08 million. So 1,082,000. So I sent that document to you just on its own. So if you want to share that with the rest of the committee, you have that in your inbox.
All right, thank you very much. And on that note, I also did share, again, the business administrator's report. I did confirm I sent it. So I did confirm that, but I also sent it to each member individually. So hopefully you'll also receive that now as well.
I got mine, thank you.
Okay. Very good, great. Okay, and on that, moving forward in the agenda, public input. I don't see anyone on the WebEx that has joined from the public, but I will let our IT administrator, Mr. Brunel, confirm that for us.
Yep, there are no other participants but yourselves.
Thank you very much. All right, and with that, we are at adjournment of tonight's meeting. Our next meeting will be on Thursday, June 25th. I look forward to talking to everyone then. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So made. I'll second
Everyone's
Jen.
quick on that one. I heard Carrie. Okay, so who's second?
I mean, Andrew, who else would it be?
Okay, all right. Ms. Burke, thank you very much.
So I was
All
going to
right,
say,
Mr. Hodgkins, how do you vote? Aye. Okay, Ms. Harrison?
Aye.
Mr. Leary?
aye.
Ms. Burke?
Aye.
Mr. Sun?
Aye.
Ms. Douglas?
Aye.
Ms. Forty?
Aye.
Mr. Hayes?
Aye.
And I am also an aye. All right, and with that, that concludes our meeting this evening. I hope everyone has a great month, and we'll talk in June. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Andrew, don't go yet.
Yeah, Andrew, quick question for you too.